Hey guys, sorry I have not made a video in a little while. I took off some time for the holidays, but I did want to quickly create this video before I take off some even more time for the holidays. So this season I am playing in War League for the first time. If you guys aren't familiar with War League, you can go on goatformat.com to learn more. But essentially what it is a 12-week season where different people form teams, and each week in the season, 5 players from a team from your team play 5 players from an opposing team, and whichever team wins at least 3 out of 5 matches wins the quote-unquote war for that week. So I'll be playing on Team Ultra Instinct, which is actually split into 2 teams, Team Ultra and Team Instinct. I'm on Team Instinct. And my reason for playing, or my motivation for playing, is I kind of want to just get some more experience playing against other good players, and then also testing out some different decks and different deck theories. So speaking of testing out different decks, this is actually the deck that I played this week. Oh, by the way, I won't necessarily be playing every week in this season, but I figured it'd be kind of cool to track my progress for the weeks that I do play. So I'll be making a video every time I play in the War League. So what you're seeing here is the Gravekeeper deck that I played. It's kind of like a flip control Gravekeeper deck. It's not really built like a typical aggro Gravekeeper deck. And my reasoning behind that is I didn't really want to rely too heavily on Necro Valley. So you'll see I'm not playing multiple soldiers, and I'm also not playing Gravekeeper's Assailant, because I really don't like having to rely on seeing a card in order to play my deck. Instead, I'm trying to gain advantage from Spy and Guard and reusing them with Book of Moon and Tsukiyomi, and then going aggro where it makes sense with Spirit Reaper, and I can protect myself with my Body as a Shield from like Mirror Force or Torrential, Tribe Infecting Virus, stuff like that. And then also summon Zaborg where it makes sense. So that's kind of the idea of the deck. I'll definitely be making another video on this deck talking about it a bit more and showing some more gameplay. But this is the one that I took to week 1. Oh, let me refresh this. So I ended up playing against Dingoseg, which, if you guys are familiar with the Goat Format community and kind of follow what goes on, you'll recognize this name, as Dingoseg is actually the player who took first place, or who won the Goat Format World Championship, the most recent one. So needless to say, he is a very good player. Though I did have the advantage of knowing the deck that he was probably going to play and the deck list, right? And he ended up playing the same deck list from Worlds, which is basically like a Chaos Return deck that's also kind of going a little bit aggro by playing Blade Knight and Solemn and Dushu and stuff like that. So I had the advantage in the fact that I knew his deck and I was kind of prepared, mentally prepared for what he was going to play. But I was kind of at a disadvantage in the fact that I don't have very much experience playing against his deck, and I think it's kind of a little bit hard to side against. And then I also don't have a ton of experience, playing my own deck, because this is kind of a new deck that I've recently come up with. And on the other side, he is obviously very comfortable with his deck, and his deck is obviously performs very well since he won with it, right? But let's just get right into the replay. So he takes first, which is very bad because his deck excels at going first. It's playing, Judgment and Dushu in the main, and my deck obviously wants to go first because I want to start setting up my field. I rip a heavy right off the bat because I know he has Solemn. And over here, I decide to proactively Book of Moon this Breaker. I want to protect this knock. I could have waited till he tried to pop, but I didn't want to risk this knock getting destroyed. And then I summon Spy off of this, and I'm going to try to set this and slowly gain some tempo here. I Graceful, but he rips a really, really aggressive Solemn, and now I'm going to try to gain some tempo. He makes a really good play here. I felt comfortable setting a 3rd card against his 2 cards. I didn't really sense any danger here. But he makes a nice play and chains Torrential to the summon of this Spy. Torrential resolves first, Spy resolves second, and now all of a sudden he's in a pretty good spot, and I'm in a pretty bad spot. Okay, so I make a decent play here. I bait out this ring with a book. but I'm just trying to crawl my way back into this game. And here's where I start to gain a little bit of tempo. He already used Torrential, so I'm not afraid of that. So I bounce back his card and try to go for the game shot here, but he does have the return. So this was already a pretty close game. I was very close to winning this, but he did have the return, which kept him alive. And this is where the tempo starts to swing back in his favor. There he goes, simplifying the gain state with Dust Tornado, and you saw the MST before. I was hoping the Spirit Reaper would help me. Actually, no, sorry, it couldn't have helped me. He already had the DD Warrior Lady. Here, he just top decked this knock, but I was hoping that he would attack into the Spy. I could, attack into this Tomato. I could get Spy, and then flip it down with Tsukiyomi, or maybe just attack over his Blade Knight next turn. I could have summoned the Tsukiyomi instead, but I had other set cards and I had not. Sorry, no, that's not true. He had already used one knock, so I'm like, okay, what are the odds of him having the other knock? But he does have the knock, and he does have the monster, and he goes for game right there. Overall, I'm not really too upset with how that game went. The deck, more or less functioned how I would hope it would. But he did get to go first, and that was a nice top deck from him. This game, I start off with a duo, but he has his own duo. And this is the game where I make some more suboptimal plays, I think. Here I'm feeling pretty good. I banish his Spies, which is worse for me than it is for him since he's playing Return. But I feel pretty comfortable going in for 2,000 here because I have a Book of Moon. I bait out the Mirror Force like I was kind of expecting and resetting my guard. And now I'm in a pretty good spot. Here I'm playing a little passively, but in retrospect, maybe I should have played a little bit more aggressively. I could have summoned the Spirit Reaper and tried to rip this card out of his hand, which, I mean, obviously knowing that it's BLS now seems like a really good play, right? But I was afraid of Torrential Tribute, but I think in retrospect I shouldn't be since I have the tempo here. And even if he does Torrential my guard and the Spirit Reaper, I do have the another guard to set up the next turn. And this card obviously isn't doing anything because it's just been sitting in his hand. Well, that's another reason I didn't feel the need to go super aggro. Like, he did not set this or play this. So, actually, as I'm talking about it out loud, I'm kind of convincing myself. I think at the time, I'm like, okay, he hasn't done anything with that card, so it's probably not super useful in the moment. So that's why I didn't feel the need to try to rip it. But then maybe I could have figured out that it was BLS based on that criteria, right? But who knows? It could be something else like Snatch Stealer or something. I don't know. Okay, so here I have another opportunity to go aggro. I could have flipped the guard and tried to do the same play with the Spirit Reaper, but then he's just going to attack over the guard next turn and or possibly get a draw off this Takoichi. So I'm like, okay, he's going to possibly exchange this not useful card for a potentially useful card. Okay, here I decide to bounce back the Deco because I don't want him getting the breaker effect off of what I draw. And then I think right here is the most suboptimal play I make this game, in that I could have Book of Mooned my Spy and bounce back this Deco, preventing his draw. And then more importantly, he would have 4 cards in his hand for me to Dust Shoot. I think this is definitely the most suboptimal play I made in this match and could have maybe swung things in my favor. He's a good player, so he sets first before using Deco, so he can play around Dust Shoot. And I'm just trying to build up, my field here. But he's getting more and more advantage here. Okay, things start to go south here when he heavy storms, drops his Zaborg, and all of a sudden I have no cards. I decide to bounce back the Deco instead of the Zaborg because I'm expecting to top deck a monster and he would just reuse Zaborg's effect by tributing the Deco. And here I'm in a decent position, I feel like, except that he has BLS in his hand. So it's just really south from here. And then he actually also has the return, so that's going to be game. Yeah, that's 28 plus 24, which is exactly 4,200 damage. So nice game from his play. Nice game shot from him. Overall, like I said, I'm not really too upset with how the deck functioned. Pretty much did what I wanted to do. I think I don't have the most experience using Trap Dust Shoot, so I didn't really see the line of play that I could have done there. Um, but yeah, that was the match. In retrospect, I would have sided a little bit differently. What I did is I put in my Dust Shoots, I put in Torrential because he's playing Return. I put in a Scapegoat. I think I would have put in, I should have put in another Scapegoat in retrospect. And I think I also forgot to put in Tribe, which I definitely should have put in. But what I would have sided out, I think I sided out some Jar of Greeds, but I think I should have sided out these Necro Valleys, like all three of them, because I know he's playing Dust Tornado, so Necro Valley is not really going to be doing that much. And then I could also try to punish his Dust Tornadoes by having chainable cards like Jar of Greeds and the extra Scapegoat. And also, Necro Valley doesn't do a ton against his deck because it's going aggro anyway, and the Chaos Monsters are kind of just like, the cherry on top. And the Chaos Monsters should be covered anyway by Trap Dust Shoot. So that's what I would have done differently here. Take out all the Necro Valleys. Um, but yeah, like I said, I'll make another video talking about this deck a little bit more and showing some more gameplay. But thanks for watching, guys.